Now, as you can see right here in one of my long-term dividend growth portfolios, you can see every single day for the most part for a very, very long time. I'm talking to the tune of years. I've been buying shares none other than SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF for my long-term portfolio, buying shares day after day after day after day. Now I can keep scrolling and share with you every single share more or less that I bought of SCHD, and keep in mind this is just one of my portfolios. I own shares of SCHD across multiple portfolios, just to be fully transparent. Now you can see at times I was buying shares of SCHD for $66 per share, at times I was buying it for $77 per share, and everything else in between, and that's because as a long-term hopefully buy and hold forever position, I'm not necessarily all that concerned about getting it for the cheapest price. I just want to gather as many shares consistently over time as humanly possible, or I guess as many shares that I can possibly afford. Now in this video specifically, I'm going to share with you exactly why I'm using this ETF as my foundational position for my long-term dividend growth portfolio, share with you exactly how many shares of SCHD I have as of right now, and how much dividend income that means I earn. So if you want to see a behind the scenes transparent look into a 7-figure portfolio, and here's some pretty interesting stats. Make sure to stick around, drop a like down below, and let's get right into it. Real quick for those that haven't already, make sure to go to the first link in my description and grab my new dividend investing ebook, where I share exactly how I went from $0 invested to now earning over $6,000 on a monthly basis and over $1 million invested in the market. Along with the ebook, you're also going to receive my custom dividend tracker, where you can track your dividend progress on an ongoing basis and reach your dividend investing goals. So make sure to grab yourself a copy of my dividend investing ebook and the new dividend tracker today. It's the first link in my description. So before anything, heading over to my long-term portfolio dividend tracker that you can see right here in the screen, you can see right here SCHD. I currently own across my portfolio somewhere around 640 shares with an average cost per share somewhere around $73 more or less. Now I personally have been buying shares of SCHD for several years now, and as of right now we're probably going on around 3 years straight, and I mean buying shares basically more or less every single day. Now, of course, there's been certain days in the stock market over the last 3 years where I maybe did not grab a share of SCHD, but it's one of the top holdings on my daily buy list to try to buy at least 1 or 2 shares across my portfolios, and I've been able to do so at least for the most part. Now with my 640 shares more or less, and the fact that I have a decently high yield on cost because I bought my shares of SCHD at much cheaper prices, at least a lot of them, I'm currently earning somewhere around, this is just estimated of course, around $1,900 per year in dividends, or if we were to divide that out by 12, around $160 per month. Now this means that in theory, I not only could purchase around 2 shares of SCHD every single month with the amount of dividend income that I'm receiving just from SCHD. But on top of that, as I buy more and more shares and collect more and more shares in my portfolio, it's going to make this dividend income move up and going to make my future dividend income larger and larger, especially with dividend increases, which is what we're going to talk about here in a second. Now, one of the main reasons I decided to build out SCHD as a foundational position for my long-term portfolio, and again, this does not mean that this is the perfect strategy for you or the next person, but for me personally, I'm very interested in dividend growth names, different stocks and ETFs that pay a certain amount of dividend yield day one, but historically at least has paid more and more in dividends as time goes on. Now this basically means that even if you're earning a certain set amount of dividend income today, it means that maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years, maybe in 5 years, the amount of dividend income from that same exact asset, from that same exact position could be much, much higher than it was prior. Now a few things about that, a few things about dividend growth. For one, especially if you're a newer investor, I'm begging you to look into dividend growth rate and to dig a little bit deeper into the power of compounding and what that particularly could do for a portfolio long term, even if it's a relatively smaller portfolio. And just to get an idea of what I'm talking about, let's say around 10 years or so ago, let's say I owned 640 shares of SCHD back in 2013, and let's say I was getting paid around $0.25 per share per quarter, which is the amount of dividend income that this ETF used to pay around 10 or so years ago. Now, if we were to just fast forward 10 years, which isn't really that long of time, now I would be getting paid around 3.5 times more dividend income per quarter. And the best part of all this is I didn't have to buy another single share to get paid more dividend income. All I had to do was hold onto the shares that I already owned and just hold them tight and get paid dividends every single quarter while I waited. Now, for those reasons, along with others, there's really not many other strategies that I can say I'm much more fond of than dividend growth investing, because of the fact that you're going to get paid, or at least historically speaking, you're going to get paid more and more just to hold on to the same very asset. Not to mention, like I said, if you continue to buy more and more shares, that 25 cent per share per quarter dividend payouts will not only be for 641 shares, but it could be for 700, 800. And if you were to multiply that, you can imagine just how much cash flow that could be. Now, one of the main other reasons I'm investing so heavily in SCHD as of right now and why I have been over the last 3 years is because this ETF has the potential to keep moving up in price, at least it has historically. Now, even though throughout my long-term portfolio, which we're going to dig into a little bit more towards the end of this video, it's not like every single stock or ETF I own are growth monsters, and that's because a lot of my dividend-paying stocks and ETFs are a little bit more high yield, offering more income potential than maybe some others across the market. Now, because of that reason, I definitely personally want to have a portion of my portfolio invested into something that has the potential to not only double over time, but maybe even triple, like SCHD has done over the last 10 or so years. But along with that, dividends and dividend growth is very important to me, especially for the strategy that I'm looking to use when it comes to investing. Across all my portfolios combined as of right now, I'm currently earning north of $82,000 per year in dividends, or around $6,800 per month. And if we look at those numbers and extrapolate out and just realize that different holdings in this portfolio like SCHD, even if I'm getting paid as of right now around $160 more or less per month in dividends, if that number moves up to $190 or $200 or $210, that will substantially change the amount of total monthly dividend income I'm going to be making within just hopefully a few years. Now, lastly, just to give you a visual of what we're working with here, I currently have 641 shares of SCHD, which I bought around $73 per share. Now, if I were to reinvest the dividends and contribute from this point on just $1 per year, so basically no more contributions, going off of the rest of this ETF's data, this is what we could be looking like in the future. Now, year number one, I'm currently earning around $1,600 more or less in annual dividends, which of course is just estimated. By 10 years down the road though, again, just reinvesting dividends, not even buying another single share, we're up to almost $5,000 per year. Now, 20 years down the road, I'd be 51 years old with around 1,600 shares. And again, this is saying I do not buy another single share of SCHD, which of course is not the case. I'd be at $20,000 per year in dividends. Now, by 25 years in, I'd be at $49,000 per year in dividends. If I never bought another single share of this ETF, just reinvest the dividends and sat on my hands, I'd be earning just from this one position alone, in 30 years, I'd be 61 years old, $140,000 per year in dividends. Now, we've talked about this before, but just going over some of the basics, it says this fund's goal is to track as closely as possible before fees and expenses the total return of the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index. Now, without going through the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index in this video, because we have talked about it plenty of times in the past, and go back to some of my older videos and watch it, this is a super solid index that has a very rigorous screening on letting stocks in and of course kicking stocks out of it. This means that in theory at least, you can invest, sit back and relax, and just know that the underlying index that SCHD tracks is most likely going to be picking the perfect investments within the fund, or at least it has historically, going off performance. Now, whether or not SCHD is the right ETF for you, that's of course going to have to depend on things you're looking to get out of your investment. And I will say there's tons of different high quality dividend growth style ETFs across the market these days. And in my opinion, as long as you pick one of the good ones, you're probably going to be fine. But for me personally, those are the results of investing into an ETF like this for basically 3 years straight. Now, lastly, most importantly, I want to hear from you guys down below. If you're building out a foundational position, whether it's stock or ETF across your portfolio, what is the ticker symbol you're building out? Leave it in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to please drop a like and subscribe for more future content like this. Thanks as always for stopping by, and if you are interested in investing, make sure to check out these recent videos I posted right here.